Okay, all done carving. Just wanted to make sure that I got this on camera before I started sanding. And I think, as I mentioned already, I switched back to the flapper disc pad. And yeah, you can get some pretty accurate results with that thing. So yeah, this is just with the grinder and the flapper disc pad. And as you can see, it's pretty much perfectly shaped. I haven't touched this at all with the Shinto rasp. I think I can go straight to the quarter sheet palm sander, electric palm sander. So that's next. And the phone is almost dead, so I might have to do this as a series of shorts unless I can get the stuff to splice. And there it is, all sanded down. Nice and smooth. You can see just a little hint of line of the red that I wasn't able to get off with the sander, but that's going to be underneath the Locknut anyway, so that's not an issue. So yeah, that takes care of the cutting and the shaping and the sanding. And so I'm gonna test assemble, and then I'm gonna disassemble and send it off to the paint shop, so there's no staining or clear coating yet. So drilling some neck screws and putting the nut on and oiling it up, and I think that's going to be about it, and the neck will be ready for test assembly. So yeah, I think the nut's going to be next. And in order to, this phone actually, even when the camera is paused, slowly uses more juice than the charger puts out, so I'm going to have to stop recording and hope that I can splice little bits together in order to get something of a reasonable length. Otherwise, you're going to be watching about 35 shorts in a row or something. But anyway, yeah, I'm going to end this segment. Hopefully I can splice it with the next one. And the next thing is install a Locknut. Hey everybody, working on the Robotuner. Locknut install is next. I'm going to be using a slightly different approach from my normal approach. Obviously, the first thing to do is knock this puppy off. That's that part. Now I got to go find it someplace on the floor in all this mess. Be right back. Yeah, like in an hour, right? Take to find this thing. Alright, hold on. Okay, so different approach that I'm talking about here is what you see here is what you typically end up with after you knock off your nut. You got a little bit of nut shelf, and then you've got your lean back headstock. And let me grab the Floyd Rose Locknut. Okay, so there's your Locknut, and so as you can see, the shelf portion here, where the old nut was, is not as wide as the Locknut. The Locknut comes, all the way back to here, which is, pretty far. So, my typical approach is I'll add shim up on the existing nut shelf as needed to get this at the proper height in relation to the fret plane. Yeah, hold on. Okay, so you know the trick about you take a pencil and cut it in half and then stick it here in order to mark your nut, in order to get your nut slot height. Well, turns out you can also take a fret rocker, and if you go like that, boom, you all of a sudden have a little pointer that shows exactly how high your nut slot needs to be in order to be even with the fret plane. So yeah, so what you would do is you'd have your nut here, and then this right here, the end of the fret rocker, shows where the bottom of these slots should be. And so you would add shim as needed in order to get it up where it was supposed to be. And then at the back end, see the way it's constantly falling off here, I would simply add more shim. So I might, like, add a little shim back here, get this back part built up even with the rest of the shelf, and then just add larger shim across the whole thing until I got it built up. Now, what I'm going to do in the way of a different approach is actually something that's a bit more traditional approach. I'm going to, well, actually assuming that I can, because I just saw that there might be a truss rod in the way. Yeah, in fact, it looks like there is a truss rod in the way, which is really going to screw up my plans. Because my plan was to file this down until the flat part of the shelf, because as you file it down, the flat portion of the shelf is going to get bigger and bigger. So I would actually file it down until the shelf was actually this wide to fit this thing, which of course would bring this down to about here in height. And then I was going to add a block of wood that would bring it way up here, and then I was going to sand down the wood until it was at the perfect height. And that was my plan. But given the fact that I've got this truss rod in the way of me bringing this down by, I don't know, let's say 2 mil, or perhaps as much as, probably about 2, well, maybe 3 mil, in order to get it all the way back here. Yeah, by then I'll have 2 or 3 mil worth of truss rod sticking in the way of my block, and when I put my block down, it'll go dinka, 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 dinka. Plus, even before that, my file will be hitting this truss rod. So much for that idea, I guess. What I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to add spacer back here to build it up to the level of the shelf, and then I can just use wide spacer. So the normal approach, in other words. So I guess I'm going to need to start with a big old chunk of something to go at the very tail end of the nut. Okay, looks like this thing needs about 2 mil worth of shim. So I got this cut out, and next step is to paint it, because we don't want white and purple showing on our all black hardware guitar. So time for the paint shop. And there it is. It is actually so small and light that the spray can here would flow it around, and I was able to cover all sides, including the side that's lying down at the moment. And it's just Buck-A-Can flat black paint from, I think this came from Lowe's. So yeah, it'll get the job done. Yeah, so give this 5 minutes to dry, and then I can glue it to the bottom back edge of the nut here, and then figure out how much more shim. Actually, I guess I should probably glue it to the neck, and then I can put more shim on top as needed. So do it that way. Okay, need to mark out where the back of this thing is so we know where to put this spacer. And there's our line, which means we want to put the spacer just inboard of that, right about there. Yeah, well, you get the idea. Get up there, you. Yeah, that kind of thing. So, time for some CA glue and a toothpick. fit is very nice, perfectly level, nice and flush against the end here, and yeah, nice and perpendicular and everything. I need to get the locks out of it so that I can do this in order to figure out where we're at. Yeah, see, from this camera angle, you'll actually be able to see what's going on. We're shooting for just a little bit more wiggle than we got there. Well, it looks like it's almost 2 mil too low. Watch this. Get it on the last 2 frets, get my fingers out of the way, and bink, 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 bink. See how it rocks down? Rock down, rock down, rock down. And it does that all across the board, even on these higher slots in the center. So yeah, the whole thing needs to come up by a couple mil. So we try out putting in a layer of the purple pickguard stuff, and oh, see all that gap there at the first fret now? Yeah, that's going to be too much. Too much. Yeah, see, wiggle, wiggle. You can actually see light underneath that thing. It's so high. So yeah, it's patently obvious they're on the wrong side. And we're shooting for something much more like bing, bing, just barely off of the fret, maybe. Okay, so we need less than a purple. Okay, looks like 1 mil wood laminate is going to put us right where we want to be on the 2nd fret. Get it in frame. Okay, on the 2nd fret, we're in the nut slot, and we have just a little bit of wiggle, but there's practically no daylight under there. See, practically no daylight, but just a little bit of wiggle, and that's what we want. That puts us, you know, just a hair above the fret plane at the nut slot, which is pretty much perfect. Because see, if you get below the fret plane, you could run into buzz in the first 3 frets. And if you're at the fret plane, you know, splitting hairs, you might end up below the fret plane and it's hello buzz again. So if you got since, you know, this isn't stuff machined to 10,000ths of an inch, so it's better to go a hair too high than the fret plane, just to be safe. Because once you're all said and done, everything's all clamped down, it's got strings on and everything, it's hard to say where it's exactly going to end up, you know, and you might pick up that 20th of a mil that's going to make the difference between works great and has issues. So yeah, a little room for error, shall we say. Otherwise, you'd go until you could get it precisely so that it just touched the first fret. But I prefer to leave just a smidge of clearance to be safe. So let me cut this to size and sand it down, and then how our screw holes look versus not great as usual. Not a whole lot of beef on either side of the truss rod cavity for screws, so I think we're going to have another spot glue in place and hold it down with string tension kind of a nut. In which case we can spot glue this to the bottom of that, I suppose. Alright, we'll try that. Okay, got it marked out. Now it's time for the coping saw. Okay, got it cut and sanded. Now, the edges are going to be visible, which means maybe I should make it wider. I wanted it to be small enough that it didn't stick out over the nut, but I think I've got a little too small with it. Let me make a wider one. Okay, this looks a little better. Now, only the sides will be visible really, so need to make them black. Okay, there we go. All the edges have been blackened with a Sharpie. Now to glue it in. Let it dry. So this is what it turned out looking like. That's a side view, and that's what the end looks like. I think it'll do. So at this point, the only thing the neck still needs is stain, clear coat, and screw holes. And that's it. So it's more or less done for the moment. Okay, neck is pretty much done for now, and it's time to design the body. First step, we need to know distance from the nut to the end of the heel, because then we can subtract that from the scale length, and that tells us the distance from the end of the heel down to our saddle line, wherever that may be. So the easy way to do that on this particular neck is the fretboard is 495 millimeters long, and the overhang here on the bottom side is 6 millimeters. So the distance from the nut to the end of the heel is 6 millimeters shorter than the length of the fingerboard from the nut. So subtract 6 off of that, and you get a length of here to here from the nut to here of 489 millimeters. So then you subtract that from the scale length, and you get 159 millimeters from the back of the heel to, where's something I can use? There we go. We'll use this. This looks like an appropriate thing to use. So 159 millimeters to the saddle line. There's saddle line. There's our saddle line. There's 150 millimeters, 159. So about here. Okay. Yeah, so that's the end of the neck. That's more or less how far away the bridge is going to be. And then we have to start thinking about height, because remember, this is only 20 millimeters tall, and this bridge is all the way down already, so it's pretty obvious that we're going to be needing some brake angle here in order to get things working out. Plus, we also need to worry about where's more parts. Give me more parts. Give me more parts. Yeah, I need this part. Need to worry about this puppy and how tall it is. It'll fit nicely under the bridge, so that's not an issue. If we have to introduce sufficient brake angle to clear the bridge, looks like we're going to be safe as far as this quad rail goes. And then the $64 question is, how tall is this sucker versus how tall these tuning pegs are, and are we going to need some kind of a hold down bar thing? And for that we need this guy. Now, so it's actually going to be, which way is it? That's a left. Like this kind of a thing. So, and if the body's here, and we've got a piece of wood here that this mounts to, and then no, this goes on the back, and this is a right-hand tuner. Okay, yeah. So it goes like this. And then it goes through the tailstock from below, and then you put the washer and the nut on top of the wood. So these guys are going to be sticking out from the body. Like that kind of idea. So, okay, but the body's going to be at this height. Kind of a thing. What we got here? Okay, so we're going to be coming over here, and then we're going to have a tuning peg just sticking up normal tuning peg height. So we're probably going to want a string tree, and we're probably also going to want a hold down bar, I'm thinking. You come over the rollers, you then go under a hold down bar, and then you got clearance considerations here. When the saddle's all the way forward, you can only have so much of a brake angle here. Yeah, so you're limited to about 30-degree brake angle. You can't even go a 45. You're limited to about a 30-degree brake angle behind the bridge. So that means that you're going to have to, any kind of a hold down bar would have to go at least a couple inches almost behind the bridge. And then you'd have like trees in between these guys as needed, I guess, would be the way. So yeah, you're probably looking at like a hold down there, and then tuners here, kind of an idea. So, and then you're going to need a little bit of shim in order to get this neck up to the saddles here. Unless you want to take this thing off and make a lower bridge for it. But then you lose your adjustment unless you build that in or something. So, yeah, I think that's going to be the approach. You give it a little neck break, and that way you've still got a thin neck joint, but your geometry is all still straight despite the fact that you've got a real thin neck joint. So, yeah. Alright, so that's the basic idea right there. So we know that this is going to be a 90mm long triangular heel. And it's going to have 2 screw holes. And yeah, so that'll go like right about here. And then from there it's 159 to the saddle line. And then we're going to come back oh shoot, let's say 60 mil. Yeah, let's go for 60 mil. That's where the hold down will go. And then go like maybe another 30 mil behind that for the first set of tuners. Should put it like right there. That should work out okay. Doesn't seem to be too scrunched up. And let's see. That gives you, yeah, and overall the guitar length is not bad. Now let's see here. Might have to cut the ends off the bridge in order to keep it from getting struck by the player's leg or something. Keeping it floating probably is not a problem. And floating roller TOM is a very Gibson-ish kind of a thing, keeping in with the vibe of the Gibson hardware here. Probably should have got a Gibson neck for it, but that's life. So let's see. Now, widths. Okay. neck width, we're looking at about 50. So we'll have a 50 millimeter wide heel that's 90 millimeters long. And then, what else we got? We'll have a depth pick guard, and that only needs like a little cube to mount it on. We'll have this, which will have some spacers, so it's going to need some space to mount it on. Might have spacers. We'll have this, which is either going to need spacers in the middle, or it's going to require more or less the full width of this body blank to support it. But you could put spacers in the center instead and lose the ends on it, and that would also work. The problem with this, if you've got it on like a pedestal with spacers in the center, is that you got to have equal loading on it to keep it from like tilting, which means that if you take like everything except if you put on like just the number 6 string, it might not want to stay in position until you get the rest of the strings on. It's not a big deal. And that also would, I'm trying to figure out how wide to make the body here. So, and then you get down to these, and this thing is how wide. This thing is like 67. Yep. I better write that down. So we got our little tuner thingy. And it's like 67 wide. Yeah, just so you all can see where I'm writing all these numbers down as I'm going along. So there's our triangular heel, 90 by 50. You go down 159, there's your saddle line. Give it about 60 mil spacing, hold down and go here. I'm actually thinking use 2 Floyd Rose string retainers side by side for the hold down. And then that's where the robo plate goes. Down here. Oh, right, 30 from the hold down to the first tuner. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, that's more or less it, and it's just a matter of how wide we want to make it. This is going to be 67, so there it needs to be 67. Up here at the saddle, we could get away with something narrow. So I'm actually thinking, you know, theoretically you could get away with something 50 all the way down until you hit here. So you could just do a 50 to 68 triangle or something like that. Or you could go 50 all the way and then just suddenly come out with a block at the end that's 68 wide for this thing. So, yeah. Or another possibility is you're like 50 and come out to 68, and then you use the rest of this, because how wide is this? Yeah, see, this is almost 90 wide, and you use the rest of that for a guard for this guy. Now, the guard's going to have to be way out here somewhere. So, yeah. Well, let's see, the most straightforward thing would be you'd make it 50 wide there, you'd make it 68 wide here, and you just connect the dots. So you'd end up with a big, you'd have a triangular heel, and then you'd have a gently sloping out center section, and then you'd have a rectangular tailpiece part. And then you got to figure out what to do about the bar. So let me draw out the basic thing right quick. Alright, this little drawing slash sketch is approximately 1/10 scale. So the tuners are going to be there. I got to see how far they stick out. Tuners stick out about 26 millimeters, 25 millimeters, 25 millimeters. So they're going to stick out they're going to be more or less that big, roughly. So now I got to figure out a way to put some kind of a guard bar to protect this side. So, if you've got a guard bar right up against this, but you've got space here, can you actually tune? What am I doing? It's a Robotuner. You don't really need to be able to tune these things manually. But if you had to, could you get in to turn this thing? Yeah, you probably could. I think I'd have to say. It'd be difficult, but you could. If you wanted to get at it, you wanted to give yourself more space. Let's see. It's tail tuner, so you're coming down, you're going to be like this, trying to grab it, and oh my god. No, you'd have to, yeah. That's really the way you want to go, is this kind of a thing. Because if you're trying to make it so the player has enough room to put their hand around it this way as opposed to that way, you get way too wide, way too wide. So we want to be something more like this, I think. Kind of thing. So if this is 25 mil, then maybe we make this gap like 30 mil. And then just give it a guard bar that's maybe, I don't know, 15 mil wide or so. It's like that, and basically comes around like that, I guess. Let's see, you're here, and you're somewhere around here. And you got a hold down. You got tuners. I'll just put this in backwards for now so I get an idea where that's sticking out. So there's the bridge. You want to come down about 100 mil at a 30-degree angle from the center of the bridge, and 100 mil at a 30-degree angle. So right about there. Something to mark it with. Right about there is where your leg cutout should be. So your so your leg bar is going to be at a 25, about like this, and this is going to be on the back of it, on the back of the guitar, in the way of the leg bar. So the leg bar is going to have to be mounted on a stand kind of a thing. But let's see. Okay, so where was I? Alright, so you're there, and you're here. Get over there we go. Right, so tuners, 30 mil back from the hold downs. Leg bar, that's where your knee goes, most basically. So we go like 30 degrees, kick back to 25. So your leg bar is going to be about like this. So, and then you need protection here. But that works okay with your, see where I'm going? I'm trying to figure out where the cutout needs to be, because that's also a question of where this guard bar goes, because you can't have the guard bar interfere with the cutout. So yeah, the cutout's going to need to be about there. So you're looking at something like, let's see, we're going to have one that sticks out there. What I really should do is I should get a left-handed tuner and put on one on this side. Can you see the guitar starting to take form? With a swing bar and a guard bar, and it'll have, you know, the usual X13 type suspects hanging off the guard bar, kind of an idea. Alright, so let's see, this guy's going to be about here, and yeah, something like that would work. Something like that would work quite well, actually. You go like that, you only need the guard bar about this long. I have something shorter. A little beefier than that, obviously, but here we go. That kind of idea. So could just be a triangular wedge of this stuff. Alright, so yeah, that's the basic idea there. And it looks like the bar's gonna start more or less at the bridge. It needs to come down about to the end of the tail stock. And then it'll have a swing bar, which attaches just about at the end of the tailstock. I guess we'll have to put a block just below the tailstock for this to attach to, and then this thing will swing back and forth over top of that on the back of the guitar. Okay, well, that all seems doable. Yeah, so basically it would look something like that, with the guard bar sticking out the right side there, starting about at the bridge and just clearing that first knob, kind of an idea. And we can just get away with a straight piece of wood, I think, maybe. And just kind of like, you know, bevel it on this side and then just maybe just glue it on, or maybe glue and screw, something like that. Or, I don't know, wait and see. Could also do something like a bar here and a bar here, and then just bevel, and glue, and yeah, that kind of idea. So, okay, cool. I think we got all we need in order to get started on making a body, except for deciding how wide to make it. Should I just do this basic pyramid kind of, or yeah, whatever you would call that, Washington Monument shape for the body, or yeah, like I was saying, another alternative. Now that we've got a basic idea of what needs to be defined, or what needs to be there. So we got a heel, and then we got a Robotuner set. And we got a saddle line. And we could just do a straight body all the way down to the Robotuner. That might make our stick a little bit trickier though. Something kind of like that. So yeah, just make it a straight body instead of tapering out. I don't know, tapering out probably looks better. That's probably going to look sleeker in general, so I think we'll go with that. It's simple and it's elegant. Alright, enough designing. Time to make some stuff. So looking back at this thing, we need a body blank that's, let me add it all up. Need 90, 159, 60, 30 to there, which means call it 12. I think to keep the numbers easy, we'll make it 20 to the edge from the hold down. Instead of making it, let's see, hold down's here, roughly. Instead of making it 30 here, we'll make it 20 from here to here, which moves that like 2 millimeters that way. Which doesn't make a difference, but it makes the laying it out a lot easier. It makes the math easier, basically. And for here, we're going to go for 70 width and 20 to the end. So we get 9, 16 with one left over, 6, 2, plus the length of this thing, which is 92. Uh, 25, 31, 32, 33, 42. minus 1. So I get, yeah. By 70. I get 421 by 70 millimeters for the size of the body blank, which is bigger than that ruler. Here. Wow, that's a pretty good guess. Yeah, there's 421. Yeah, so we need a body blank roughly this long, and by, what did I say, 970? 70, 70, 70. And this is, oh yeah, this is like an 88, so there's plenty of room here. Now the next question is, should we leave it wider for this bridge? Well, you can leave it wide for the bridge and then narrow it back down again for that. That might not be a bad idea. It does make it a little bit more complex to cut. Well, let's see. If it's going to be like this wide, how much bridge foot does that leave us? Leaves you a ½ inch of the feet of the bridge sitting on the body if we just go a straight line. So there's no major need to flare it out. And based on this here, it doesn't look like we need to cut the ends off of this thing unless we want to do so for just for aesthetic purposes. So yeah, we could just go a straight line. There's no need to flare. Maybe that's the thing to do. Just keep it the Washington Monument shaped body. It's simple and elegant. So I think, yeah, that one's going to win for the body shape. No flares, no squares, no nothing. Just keep it simple. And yeah, that's it. So let me lay this thing out, draw it out. And according to this, we're coming up on almost an hour's worth of footage, which means this has probably already been split into 2 files by the camera. And I hope I can get them to merge in the conversion software. So I guess in the next episode, I'll be marking out the design we just came up with. So until then, everybody, have a good one.